My name is Ginder. It was almost like I'm too scared to eat anything here. I would say 5, 6 years ago, I was just having a lot of stomach problems. I've had like a little bit of an autoimmune problem growing up and went and got it checked out, tested me for like every type of like food allergy. And for gluten, it came back that I had celiac. When I got here, it was a bit of a challenge. I looked at a lot of different schools, and OU was probably the one with the least accommodations towards gluten-free foods. When you have like 4 meals that you just rotate, got kind of tired of that, and so I would lose like 10 pounds in like a week and a half. But I remember calling my mom at Nelson, and I was like, I genuinely might have to transfer. I was like, I don't think I can stay here because I don't like trust myself to be able to go get 3 meals a day. Like I don't think I can. And if I don't like I'm not going to do it. So I remember calling her like in tears, and I was like, I'm gonna have to leave this school. And so she was like, well, first let's see what else we can do.
Ginder is not the only Ohio University student who feels these struggles every day. But what is celiac disease?
With celiac disease, what the concern is, there's something called gluten, which is a protein in a couple of forms of grains. So those specific grains would be wheat, barley, and rye. So that's in a lot of our foods. So if we think about grains at large, wheat, that's going to be anything that's like bread related, cereal, pasta.
Lindsay Bailey is a registered dietitian at Akron Children's Hospital. She's a certified diabetes instructor and works with patients from ages 10 to 25.
When you have one autoimmune disorder, you usually have more than one, and celiac is the most common for diabetics to get.
Abby Ogleby was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at just 5 years old. A type 1 diagnosis requires a constant flow of insulin and monitoring of carbohydrates. Still, the Center for Disease Control describes the diagnosing process itself as simple and quick, with a variety of different testing options, most of which have a short turnaround for results. But the same can't be said for celiac disease.
Celiac disease, it's not something that you necessarily have and you're born with. It's an autoimmune condition where something triggers it.
The average celiac diagnosis age of the sources I spoke to was 15 years old. Even Ogleby, who caught her diabetes diagnosis early on, was not diagnosed with celiac until 5 years later. She said she remembers the experience vividly.
I was super excited to be the center of attention, and I really didn't understand, but I was told I was going to go to the hospital, and I had my pigtails in. I remember I was very excited, even though I felt horrible.
Detecting celiac disease is not just difficult, it can also be strenuous. Bailey says for a test to yield positive results, the patient must be on a gluten-containing diet leading up to it.
They told me, no, just stay gluten-free. And then after, they were like, since there was no gluten in your system, we don't know. We can't see how it's like reacting with your body. So I don't really want to go through the process all that again.
To this day, Allie Parker has never been officially diagnosed with celiac for this reason. To her, another test just isn't worth the hassle or the money.
Whether it's an intolerance or an allergy, like I know the outcome's going to be the same, and I don't really want to like put myself through that again.
This is a fair response considering the full effects of gluten on someone with celiac. According to the Celiac Disease Foundation, coming into contact with gluten can bring on a lot of symptoms, including abdominal pain, depression, anxiety, nausea, vomiting, and weight loss.
It is scary when like it's total gamble when you eat those kind of foods. It's like have some good food tonight or not have a day tomorrow. You know what I mean? I know people that have to look in the ingredients in their shampoo because if it has gluten, their hair will fall out.
Non-food items containing gluten may be the most shocking, but there are also plenty of unsuspecting foods you eat on a daily basis that someone with celiac couldn't.
Oftentimes byproducts of those can be found in foods that we wouldn't normally think of as being a grain. So for instance, soy sauce actually has a derivative that is not safe for patients with celiac disease.
There are some substitute options for foods that would typically have gluten, and these items end up being a staple for students with celiac.
Sometimes I've literally put my soy sauce bottle in my backpack in the morning because I knew later in that day I'd want to go to Mr. Hibachi. And I like want soy sauce, so I have to like plan it, which is like kind of silly.
Whether it's making sure you have your soy sauce with you or even just trying to figure out whether you can eat at a certain restaurant, having celiac requires a lot of planning.
These foods have to be avoided or they're causing damage to our systems. The other concern is not only avoiding the food product, but also avoiding the contamination of the product. If we have a jar of peanut butter that we're using, if somebody puts a butter knife in there to use it and they're spreading it on regular bread, and then they stick the knife back in, now that jar of peanut butter is contaminated. So peanut butter in and of itself is gluten-free, but if it came into contact with something that was gluten-containing, now that food is contaminated.
This is something so silly that like I don't really think other people would think of. Like those tongs that you use, like they'll grab the hot dog buns or whatever, grab their cheeseburger, and then put the cheeseburger on their bun with those same things, and then put them right back. And like for a lot of people, that would get them, they'd be sick for like 8 hours just because of that little touch on the bread. Which thankfully for me is not a problem, but I kind of like wince at it every time. And it's not their fault because that's just how normal people eat. But like when you deal with this kind of stuff, it becomes like a total like, ugh, hope people realize that. And everywhere you look in the dining hall, that's how it is.
Just because you have celiac doesn't mean you're automatically sensitive to cross-contamination. It's more of a spectrum. Some sources I spoke with say they need to be very careful of it. Some say they've never had any problem, and others, like Ginder, say it's something that's gotten better with time.
Like for me, I tell there's a freshman that's a family friend, and she has celiac too. And when she was coming here, I told her, quite frankly, I was like, I would look at other schools if you are, serious about the food thing.
Despite the warning, Hannah Sudbrink decided she would take her chances at Ohio University. And while she's here, she uses Ginder as a resource.
Like, she's been my biggest tool, to be honest, like coming here. Like, I would just send her a quick text, be like, hey, is this gluten-free? Or like, will this be okay for me to eat? Like, I've talked to her more than I've talked to the nutritionist.
Sudbrink's symptoms are pretty severe. For context, Bailey said when testing for celiac disease, Akron Children's uses 8.99 units per milliliter as a limit for certain antibody levels. Any higher than that would warrant further testing. Sudbrink said her test came back at 130. So she always has to watch out for cross-contamination. It's a big enough deal for her that she had to turn down her top college solely because she says they lacked accommodations.
I liked it there, and it was like awesome for the programs that they would have had if I ended up going into criminology, but there was just nothing for me to eat.
And Sudbrink isn't the only student whose celiac played into their college decision.
I mean, that was a factor, but other things kind of outweighed it, and I just decided that I was going to just figure it out. I remember actually kind of having a meltdown.
If they're on a dining plan and if they're required to be on a dining plan and they have limited food options, it's very challenging to meet their nutrition needs.
Even before considering the university's accommodations, the switch from home-cooked meals to dining court options isn't easy for anyone with celiac disease.
It was a big transition. I definitely ate a lot less, and I got a lot less protein as well because there weren't that many options for me.
A lot of times they have to kind of go outside of their allotted swipes and spend money at the grocery stores to get the food that they need.
I'm gonna get this first. I always get one of these just because it's a lot of vegetables.
The good news is labeling laws have gotten pretty good over the years.
If you look on the tags right here, you'll see gluten-free labels. It's just hard.
Oh, nice.
Like everywhere you look.
We have to spell out if it is wheat containing because wheat is one of the major food allergens. A lot of companies are electing to label products as gluten-free on the front of the package, which is helpful.
I guess they have sandwich rolls, they have different breads. This is like one of the only brands that I think tastes good gluten-free.
Gosh, there's like 4 of these.
But like you could see, there's, how many is that?
5, 4.
5 pieces as
Yeah.
opposed to you could get a loaf for 4.
Ginder spends around $150 every 1 to 2 weeks at the grocery store on top of her expenses for her meal plan.
I feel like there's not enough hours to get studying done, to get classes, to get SIs, all that kind of stuff. And now it's 7 o'clock and I have to make time to go walk to my car, go to the grocery store, come back, unload it, and then you got to move your car back. Like it's a whole process, so I hate going.
Even if she wanted to live off of groceries alone, she doesn't have anywhere to store that much food.
I gotta be smart with it. You only have so much space.
As a sophomore living in a residence hall, she has just one fridge that she shares with her roommate. Students can request a separate fridge for their room through student accessibility services. But Ginder says storage is just one of the many difficulties with shopping as an underclassman.
I don't know a lot of freshmen that like would go to the grocery store and be able to meal prep their whole week. You know what I'm saying?
But she does know one.
I don't like stock up like a lot because it's like I don't have the room in there to stock up. It's like not horrible like walking with the groceries. It's more like the bus ride itself. Well, they don't run on the weekends, which is like the big thing that's annoying because it's like that's when I would go and get groceries, but I can't do that.
Though it works for some students, the bus isn't always a comfortable option for incoming freshmen.
I didn't have a car, so I think the meal plan was kind of my only option.
The dining halls here are so like gluten based, like especially Nelson, like all the food in there was pretty much, I was just eating like pizza and pasta and all of that.
Some students, like Parker, didn't discover their relationship with gluten until they were already in college.
Before I was able to just go in the dining hall and like get whatever I wanted, but then I had to like look at the menus every day before going in and look for the symbols and like know the specific foods I could eat.
In fact, Parker decided to get tested for celiac after struggling with OU's food options. Once she realized the issue, her eyes opened to a whole new world of limitations.
Second semester of freshman year, I was mainly just eating like a salad every day and a bowl of rice because that was like all that was at Nelson and that was like the closest place to me.
I was really excited because I was like, oh my gosh, so many choices. But the dining hall I went to was Nelson, and pretty much the only thing I could eat ever was the salad bar.
Ginder says there's only a handful of foods she's comfortable eating in the dining courts. Those are rice, a cheeseburger with no bun, fries except for curly, coleslaw, an omelet, and yogurt with granola. There's some other foods she sometimes eats, even though they come with some high cross-contamination risks.
I could have a salad if I wanted. I'm really picky, and I gotta say one of the only times I've gotten sick here was having a salad at Nelson. The thing I think about most is just protein, mostly.
Culinary Services provides an online menu with allergen information. Using January 24th's menu as a sample, I compiled an extensive spreadsheet of Nelson's options. And Ginder was right. The average gluten-containing item has more protein than the average non-gluten option. And when excluding certain items that can't stand alone, such as salad dressings or sauces, more than half of Nelson's options are made with gluten. While collecting this data, no croutons were included on the list of menu items, despite everything else present at the salad bar being listed online, including various dressings or additions. That same day, this picture was taken showing croutons sitting on the bar next to all of the other options. But this isn't the only risk of cross-contamination in the dining courts.
Another example is even cooking items such as toasters. A lot of facilities will go as far as to have separate cooking materials for cooking gluten-free items.
The dining halls provide toasters and other appliances for students to use while they're there. But this poses the same risk that we saw with the peanut butter and knife example.
Even with the ketchup dispenser, like people will put their food up onto like the spout.
Depending on the student's sensitivity, this could make someone with celiac just as sick as if they had actually eaten gluten.
I'd say that happened like 3 times last year. Had to miss like full day of class. It's just really knocks you out.
We can't really control the behaviors of other students in the dining areas, but we do train all of our staff.
Carrie Saunders is the new Culinary Services registered dietitian. She started the position in the fall of 2024. She says every Culinary Services staff member is trained to minimize cross-contamination as much as possible.
It's an hour-long allergen training, focusing on the top 9 allergens, a lot of the common sources of those allergens, trying to really convey the seriousness of food allergies and celiac disease and other diet-restricted diseases.
Still, Saunders says there are safer options than others.
Definitely recommend them steering more towards the district.
The students I talked to agree with her. The consensus was the district on West Green offers more of the options they're looking for, even if that means a further walk for many of them living on South or East Green.
They do offer it's almost like every dietary restriction there.
After hearing this from both Saunders and students, I put it to the test. Using March 26th menu as a sample, I compiled another spreadsheet, this time for the district. I found that just over half of the district's menu items are non-gluten, but it has the same issue with protein as Nelson. In fact, the gluten-containing items have almost twice the amount of protein on average compared to those without gluten. With the data you've seen so far, I've used the term non-gluten as opposed to gluten-free, which would mean that the items don't contain gluten and are made without the risk of cross-contamination. That's because throughout the entire sampling process, neither dining court offered any gluten-free options.
Overall, many students with celiac look back on their first semester eating on campus as a disappointing experience, wishing the university would do more to accommodate students like them.
My actual disability is someone at the bottom here on the right-hand corner is someone who has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities.
Marcy Hintzman is a research specialist and projects coordinator for the Great Lakes ADA Center, and she has experience working with ADA law as it pertains to college students. ADA stands for the Americans with Disabilities Act, a federal law that prevents discrimination against people with disabilities.
In celiac disease, the impairment is the immune disorder is triggered by gluten indigestion. And so the major bodily function is digestion. So if you look at the general population, then that's a significant impairment, right? So then that would rise to the level of disability under the law.
There are 5 titles that make up the ADA. Students at OU fall under Title II of the law, protecting them from discrimination from public institutions, including the university. This means any student who feels unaccommodated in the dining courts has the right to file a complaint through the university's ADA office, but Hintzman warns against acting too quickly.
We always suggest to people to start at the lowest local level possible, because most people with disabilities, they don't want to have to file a complaint. They just want access.
OU Student Accessibility Services declined multiple requests for an interview, instead providing a written statement saying that any student who voices concerns is directed to the culinary dietitian.
Usually the very first thing I do is try to get them in contact with the school nutrition programs that are available. I know a lot of the college campuses have dietitian services for students for free. And they're usually individuals that are also helping with the school food service at the campus.
I'll walk them through the dining hall, help them locate their options, introduce them to management or some of the team there, and just find ways to accommodate whatever their need is based on the individual.
But no one I talked to started with a complaint. Instead, they went straight to the previous school dietitian who held the position before Saunders.
I met with her and I told her, I was like, I need to do something because I'm not eating. Like, I'm eating maybe a meal and a snack or like 1 meal a day. This is just not sustainable. So she talked with me about a few things.
I know a lot of campuses have access to their menu online. So that's another direction that I point them in is before you go to the dining hall, explore it online and kind of see, are they following some dietary practices?
Something else that we take a lot of pride in, we do really well in, is ingredient tracking. So all of our recipes are entered into a database.
As previously mentioned, you can find information from that database online at ohio.edu/food. Each day, a complete breakfast, lunch, and dinner menu with ingredients and allergens is listed on the site.
So these are all dark pink, which is just doesn't have gluten ingredients, but it touches things with gluten.
But students say the menu isn't perfect.
It would say on the menu they had like this food for the day, but then you'd go in and they'd have something different, and it wouldn't really be marked like what it was or like what allergies it like had in it.
Sudbrink says she struggles with the same inconsistencies.
Like every day I would go in and they like wouldn't have what they say they would have. And I would be like, so is this just like a beginning of the year thing, or is this something that's going to be like consistent?
Saunders and Culinary Services declined to comment on any potential menu inaccuracies. The biggest saving grace for students with any allergy is Margaret's in the district.
That is our gluten-friendly, allergen-friendly concept on campus. At that concept, we do not bring any gluten-containing ingredients into that area whatsoever.
For those sensitive to cross-contamination like Sudbrink, this is their one safe haven. But Sudbrink says she has the same difficulties with the Margaret's menu as she does with the other dining courts.
They are amazing with how they take their precautions, but it's like they're not really amazing with reliability. It like still says they have it and you go and it's like, oh no, but we have something completely different that you won't like.
By all means, they're encouraged to ask for whatever it is that they want. And our team is really, really great at accommodating that.
Margaret's is open to all students, not just those with allergies. But eligible students can get a sticker for their student ID indicating their diet restriction, allowing them to bypass the line.
They told me they were going to give me like an allergy sticker. I just thought one like, oh, a small one to like put on like the corner or on the back. Nope.
I didn't want a sticker that says allergy on my thing that I use every day. That's probably a me issue, but I didn't want to do that.
By the time I spoke with her, Saunders was already aware of apprehension surrounding the sticker.
We've had discussions about, figuring out maybe a different sticker.
And it's not just the sticker's appearance that's a problem for students.
They say, like, just go up there if you have an allergy, but it's like, no one really wants to do that. I know it's supposed to be helpful, but it just seems like more stressful in the moment.
I just can't do that. I don't know what my problem is. I don't want to skip the line of people.
It's definitely a little unfair that students without allergies are using it just for the stir fry options, because it's they don't necessarily need it.
Saunders says Culinary Services has brainstormed some ideas to get the general student population to avoid Margaret's, but none of those plans have yet been put into action. Aside from the options in the district, Nelson also offers some diet-compliant services, including an order-ahead system.
In Nelson, we have a special area where we produce gluten-free meals and special meals there to help combat cross-contamination in that area.
It's where in between the burger place and OU Cookin', there's that little area that says order here.
It's not really front-facing, it's not one of the concepts, but there is dedicated equipment back there, and then a trained staff member will make meals.
Students who meet with Saunders are provided with a phone number and a basic menu for the call-ahead system. But the only stipulation is that Culinary Services asks that you call an hour ahead of time.
It's very discreet. They basically enter the way anybody else does. They can take their meal to go, or they can have it on a tray and eat with everybody else.
And then you have to ask people. Oh, it's so embarrassing. I wasn't gonna be is my pizza ready? But that was nice. The thought was there, but I don't think anyone ever did that.
It's a transition time for them. So part of what I teach them is trying to gain that independence and confidence navigating the dining halls. And I really want them to feel comfortable asking for what they need.
Once again, that's not the only issue students have found.
I feel like a lot of students don't really know what they're going to do in the next 30 minutes, let alone be able to plan.
Who knows they're going to the dining hall an hour before they go?
You have to order ahead of time, which is kind of difficult if you're on the move.
That is no hard, fast rule by any means. If a student did come in, they weren't able to order ahead of time, and then they just found, a cook, or they called, we'll still make them their meal. We won't be hey, you didn't call an hour ahead of time, we're not making you a meal, sorry, you're not eating today.
But Ginder says she's had that happen to her.
Because I've had them be sorry,
Really?
yeah, and I was okay. Or I'd call and I'd be hey, could I come in 15 minutes with my friends?
Yeah.
And they'd be you need to call an hour ahead, you can call for whatever, later that day. And I was it's fine.
Some students, even on the smallest meal plan, see it as a waste of money.
Even now, I probably use 4 a week out of the 10, and I'll just find other stuff to eat.
There are some weeks I go literally only I've used 1 meal swipe, and that's it. So it's I feel I'm wasting a lot of money here.
The dining courts aren't the only option for food on campus.
Go to the food trucks, but it's that's wasting my money. I can't go to the food trucks because that's just says waiting for disaster there.
No, can't do that. That's just too close contact.
Every student I spoke with has or had the smallest traditional meal plan to save money, but that puts limitations on how they can use their swipes.
I only have a traditional plan, so it's I can't go spend the rest at Jeff Market. I can only use them at the dining halls.
I didn't have Flex, so I didn't really use them. It's harder for students who don't have Flex.
I'll go to Jeff because they have pretty much what you need there, but it's expensive.
I don't know what I would do if I was kind of in a pinch with money. I don't really know how you do it.
We've kind of gotten to the point where we may try to fight for me to not have a meal plan.
According to the university website, students with celiac or other diet restrictions looking to go that route should email housing@ohio.edu. But Saunders said in her time in the position, she hasn't had any students talk to her about requesting a meal plan exemption.
I honestly have not experienced that myself. It's part of the college experience, you know. Their peers and their friends, and you know, they all have meal plans and they're all going to the dining hall. So in my mind, that would be ideal.
Peer connection and being able to kind of associate with friends. And I'm thinking about like even going to the dining hall or going out to eat. And it's like, do I even have an option for something to eat?
I remember the first few weeks, like all your new friends get together, let's go to the dining hall, but you can't because you forgot to order ahead. I wanted those experiences, and I just kind of had to give and take, sacrifice a little bit, and then go and have a bowl of yogurt for dinner. You know what I'm saying?
Students say the first few weeks were especially difficult because they weren't aware of any university accommodations.
Students generally meet with me before they, you know, really know that that's available to them.
It was definitely helpful to like open my eyes up to like what there actually was to offer, because I feel like a lot of students don't know of some of those things that do have allergies because it's not posted anywhere like publicly.
I would say it took a little bit of digging.
We have signage with my face on it in every dining hall, a QR code, so they can schedule.
But even after meeting with the dietitian, students still struggle.
Yeah, I gotta say, not a lot of improvement. I mean, it's not a lot better.
Sudbrink decided not to pursue a meal plan exemption this year, but she rarely ventured outside of Margaret's even after her meetings with the dietitian.
Because I still do use my meal swipes, but it's like Margaret's doesn't have a variety at all.
If I could kind of ask them, I'd be like, there's so many good foods that are gluten-free. I don't know where they are. They're not offered here. And I know other schools, stuff that I've even had at OSU. It's out there. I just don't know why it's not offered. You know what I mean? Because I think on rotation, even at that gluten-free, I think there's four meals that they'll rotate throughout the week, which is just, I don't know. It's kind of lame.
So, speaking to the past and things that have been done previously, I really can't make any comment on that. Variety is very important. Students having a choice is very important. And, we've talked about things that we're looking to improve in the future. That is something that is on the forefront of all of our minds.
In some ways, Saunders feels just as helpless. In her first semester, she saw around 50 students, and a chunk of those did not have diet restrictions.
The thing is, I can't provide this support and services to students if they don't reach out.
Saunders says she tries to make it as easy as possible for students to meet with her, even offering online scheduling options without a referral.
We have a button where they can actually click on it. They provide, just very brief information, can actually put a meeting on my calendar, right then and there. If students want to see changes to the things that we're doing, we're not aware unless they let us know.
Saunders says one way for students to speak out is through the Culinary Services Development Committee. The committee meets monthly and invites students and faculty to provide their own feedback.
If they're not happy with some of the things we're doing, let me know. We can always make things better.
According to Culinary Services, they advertise the meetings in multiple newsletters, on social media, and on their website. But Saunders says they're still struggling to get the word out.
My understanding is historically it's been hard to get students to come.
As of January, the email list for the meetings had 77 recipients, but a large portion of them are management team members and other Culinary Services employees.
Because if you've emailed her before, it seems like she would add you in it. So I wonder what the process of that would be, because I never heard of that.
According to a written statement from Culinary Services, students are added to the email list after attending their first meeting. Plus, Saunders says when dealing with complaints related to diet restrictions, change is harder to come by.
Change doesn't happen super quick because we want to make sure that we're doing things the right way, for the safety of students.
Still, Saunders is making a conscious effort to improve diet accommodations on campus one step at a time.
We're up to weekly meetings with myself, our senior executive chef and the rest of the executive chef team. Where, again, things are in the works. They're in a process.
The university declined an interview to discuss these upcoming projects, but a few plans were finalized in January. They include expanding the order ahead system to Margaret's with an option to order online, implementing AllerTrain, a quote gold standard allergen and gluten-free training program, and finally eliminating the top 9 allergens, including gluten, from Margaret's. Though Saunders was quoted saying the station already didn't have any gluten ingredients back in December.
At that concept, we do not bring any gluten-containing ingredients.
There is one more initiative she told me about that's already in place. Remember these stickers? Well, you won't for long, because they've been replaced with these smaller versions. Considering the difficulties students with celiac disease face on a daily basis in their first 2 years, many upperclassmen who have outgrown the meal plan requirement don't miss it.
I'm eating a lot healthier than I was. It's a lot cheaper. I really enjoy cooking for myself. So I definitely think this is a better option for people with dietary restrictions. Because I know what I can and can't eat, and it's a lot easier.
It's kind of more freeing that I'm able to make my own food now. So it's definitely been a lot better.
And the underclassmen I spoke with were eager to leave their meal plan behind. Next year, Sudbrink will live in her sorority house, exempting her from the second-year requirement.
And I've heard that the chef at the house is great with gluten-free. There's 2 other girls with celiac in the house right now.
But for those staying on the meal plan, they're encouraged to speak out.
I think that's, huge, and not feeling like they're burdening anyone. Our team is very, very happy to accommodate. I am available pretty much anytime. I will drop any meetings to meet with a student pretty much a 24-hour, advance.
Saunders is rounding out her first year in the position, and students say their grievances aren't with the special diet staff.
They weren't hiding the fact that they had miscommunication and everything on their end of it.
It's less of a disappointment than it's kind of a fear, just because of what ends up happening when I do have gluten and how big of a problem that is. One of the coordinators that I talked to was wonderful and emailed so quick and very thoughtful with her responses and quick, and so I'm very appreciative to her. I think her hands are tied, honestly, because what can she do more than I think she tried to give me my best shot.